Welcome to this explainer. We're diving straight into a phenomenal moment in history today. We are talking about a time when the United States literally doubled in size overnight and then immediately sent an epic expedition out into the complete unknown. It's a story packed with incredible expansion, high-stakes political gambling, and just raw human discovery. If you're in understanding how borders are drawn and how totally blank spaces on a map turn into known territories, well, you are definitely in the right place. Let's get right into it.
Picture this. You're the president. You're staring at a map, and boom, you realize you have the opportunity to double your entire country's footprint for a single price tag of $15 million. Back in 1803, President Thomas Jefferson did exactly that by buying the Louisiana Territory from France. That $15 million changed U.S. geography forever, opening up this huge continental future that literally no one at the time could fully wrap their heads around. But why do it? Why spend that kind of cash when the nation was still so young?
Which leads us to Section 1, the Mississippi Trade Lifeline.
To really understand this purchase, we have to look at the massive problem America was facing right before 1803. Basically, France and Spain held the keys to the trade gates. Having control of the Mississippi River and the port of New Orleans was the absolute lifeline for Western farmers. Without it, they couldn't they couldn't sell their crops to the rest of the world. Losing that access would have effectively strangled the American economy. So buying the territory wasn't just a land grab, it was a desperate, highly strategic move. By securing Louisiana, the U.S. secured its trade lifeline and totally removed a powerful European rival right off its western border. It was all about access, security, and opportunity.
Moving to Section 2, Jefferson's Constitutional Puzzle. Now, securing that lifeline, not as simple as it sounds. President Jefferson suddenly found himself in a massive legal dilemma. The Constitution didn't actually say a president could just go out and buy foreign territory. The document was completely silent on it. Jefferson, who usually believed in following the Constitution strictly, was stuck. He's facing this huge constitutional puzzle. Do you let the greatest real estate deal in history slip through your fingers just because the rule book doesn't mention it? Or do you find a way to make it work?
So Jefferson makes a highly practical choice. He actually bends his own strict rules and leans on the Constitution's treaty power to justify the purchase. He essentially argued, look, buying this land is basically a treaty agreement with France. What's really fascinating here is how this single decision set a massive precedent. It introduced the whole idea of implied authority in foreign agreements, which allowed the nation to grow and, read the Constitution's powers with just a little bit more flexibility moving forward.
And that brings us to Section 3, Journey into the Unknown.
Okay, so the land is legally secured. Now it's time for an epic adventure. The U.S. had the territory, sure, but they had to figure out exactly what that $15 million actually bought them. So, Jefferson puts together the core of discovery and sends them straight into the wilderness with 3 massive goals. Number 1, find a practical route to the Pacific Ocean. Number 2, act as scientists, cataloging the plants, animals, and resources they stumble across. And number 3, build diplomatic ties with the numerous native nations who already lived on and controlled those lands. The ultimate goal here was to take those blank, unknown spaces on their map and turn them into usable, actionable knowledge.
This incredible expedition, led by Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, braved the unknown for 3 grueling years. In 1804, they're making their way up the Missouri River. By 1805, they are facing the incredibly daunting task of crossing the Rocky Mountains. And finally, in 1806, they successfully make it all the way to the Pacific Ocean via the Columbia River. It was just a monumental feat of human endurance and exploration.
But listen, they absolutely did not do it alone. We all know the leaders, Lewis and Clark, but consider Sacagawea, a Shoshone woman whose translation skills and deep knowledge of routes and resources just completely smoothed over diplomacy. Plus, her very presence signaled peaceful intent to the tribes they encountered. Then you have York, an enslaved man traveling with Clark. He contributed essential labor, hunting, and diplomacy that quite literally supported their survival. His crucial role is a powerful reminder of how unrecognized, marginalized people often shape and sometimes entirely save these huge historical moments. Both Sacagawea and York were absolutely indispensable.
So, what were the actual results of this journey? When we put expectations up against reality, it's a pretty stark difference. They fully expected to find a Northwest Passage, an easy, direct water route to the Pacific. The reality? Yeah, no such easy water route existed. Instead, they hit this vast, incredibly complicated network of rivers and mountain passes. But hey, they didn't come back empty-handed. They brought back these incredibly detailed maps, journals packed with new resources, and a highly realistic view of Western geography. And those detailed notes? They became the exact foundation that informed later trade, trails, and U.S. territorial claims.
Finally, Section 4, True Knowledge and Morality.
Gathering all this scientific, geographic, and diplomatic knowledge was a staggering historical feat for the early republic. But this brings us to a really vital lesson, one that's deeply embedded in the Heroes Mart Academy Godly Learners series. And it's about what we actually do with the knowledge and education we acquire. When we look back at the sheer vastness of the new Louisiana Territory and the amazing resources the Corps of Discovery found, it naturally brings to mind this scripture: "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it." It beautifully bridges our understanding of this massive geographical expansion right over to a deep spiritual truth. The land, the rivers, the discoveries, they aren't just assets to be used. They're part of a much greater creation.
And this right here is where the core philosophy of the Godly Learners series really comes into focus. It teaches us that true education must always be intertwined with biblical morality. Why? Because, well, education without morality is gonna hurt. Think about it. What is the actual point of being smart, of charting new territories, of being highly educated if we just keep making choices that hurt others? Knowledge is power, for sure, but without a moral framework, that power can cause immense harm. So the really crucial point is this: true peace of mind, the kind of peace that actually guides positive, constructive action, comes to those who keep their minds spiritual. When people really engage with this principle, ensuring that their education and their discoveries are guided by a strong moral compass, they find profound peace of mind. It takes raw knowledge and transforms it into genuine wisdom. Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. We've explored how early Americans mapped out this vast, completely unknown Western geography. Now I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. As you map out your very own future and explore your own personal frontiers, how are you going to use your education to make moral choices? How will you apply your discoveries and your knowledge to prevent harm and actually build a better, more peaceful world? Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll leave you to think on that.